Hey guys, Matt from Eastwood. We're here in my home shop today giving you another little tech tip on using the Eastwood rim clamp tire machine. So today what we're working on is mounting up a tire on an old Ford wire wheel that is tubed. I feel like this is something that a lot of people are scared of. If you're working on antique cars, the majority of those vehicles use rims that are set up for using tube tires. So today what I'm going to show you is how to mount a tire that is tubed using the Eastwood rim clamp tire machine without puncturing the tube. That's the tricky part. So let's get started. Alright, so the first thing to mention, if you're using a wire type wheel like this, most of them have either a weld or like an adjustment nut that protrudes through, and you should have some sort of rubber protector on here to protect any sharp parts from puncturing your tube. Now this rim that I'm using here does have one on it already. You can buy these from most tire suppliers, or if you have it, you can use some sort of heavy cloth tape on there to wrap around and it will also work. You just need something that's not going to allow the tube to kind of protrude in there and get punctured by those nuts. So I just wanted to mention that. Now I have the rim clamped on the outside here, so this machine can actually clamp on the inside or outside of the rim. So you can see here these little knurled bits on the outside. We could actually clamp it from the inside if we wanted to, but with this rim I want to clamp it on the outside like this. It's just how I prefer doing it, but you may do it a little differently. So now that we have that all set up, we have our tube here, and the tube we're going to actually put just a little bit of air in it to put a little bit of air to give it some shape, but not a ton, and then we're going to start mounting our tire. Alright, so all I'm trying to do here is just put enough air in this so that it takes some shape and won't easily pinch. We don't want to blow it up so much that we can't get into the tire. So I'll start putting some in, just enough that it's not completely floppy. Something like that is pretty good. It has a little bit of air in it, so it holds its shape. It's not going to fold over quite as easily as when it's completely flat. And that's just a method that I like to do. So we're going to actually mount the tire first, but I usually like to put some air in it just so I don't forget and get ahead of myself. But we're going to lube up this tire here using some of the tire lube that we keep in the machine, and we'll start working around the edge and lubing the whole entire bead area. So this is an area where you do not want to be shy when you're mounting a wheel and tire. This is the biggest thing with ripping a bead, is a lot of times people do not put any or enough lubrication on the bead. So you want to put that all around there so it's nice and slippery all the way on the inside, the outside. We're doing this so that the bead will actually slip over the rim easily, and also helps us when we're prying the tire around that's not going to get caught and rip the bead. So we do both sides, flip it over, and go right there on that part of the bead, go all the way around the inside. And this is, even for somebody that is cheap like me, I do not skimp on the lubrication when we're putting this all together. So now we got the tire lubed, we can put our tire right on the rim. Alright, so we got our tire all lubed up, ready to go, and we are ready to start mounting the tire up. Now the next couple of steps are just a personal preference. There are many ways to attack this and mount a wheel with a tube on a rim, but this is just the way that works for me, and over the years I found this is the way that I have the fewest number of punctures when I put a wheel and tire on with a tube inside. So what I start doing is I actually mount the first bead with no tube. So I will take the wheel. Obviously, if you have a preferred side, if it's a white wall or whatever, you may want to, flip it around, or if it's a directional tire. But what I do is you put it on, and depending on how soft your tire is, sometimes you can actually work the tire on just by hand, like this, and that's where your lubrication comes in handy. Now you can use the tire machine with the arm here to do that, but if you lubricate it like that, a lot of times you don't have to, and simply we would just put that down and spin it around, the same method we're going to show you the last bead. So now that we have the tire mounted on the wheel, we're ready to actually put the tube in. So we have our tube over here that we've already put a little bit of air on. So what I like to do, and this is the dirty part unfortunately, can't get around it, but you need to actually put the tube inside the tire. So you pull it up, and a lot of these antique car bias ply tires are pretty soft as far as the sidewalls go. So they're pretty easy to work around. You just want to make sure that the tube is not twisted in the tire at all, because if it's twisted and you go to air it up and everything's mounted up, it'll bind up and you actually might get a vibration. So make sure you have the tube kind of mounted in there, and what I'll do is try and get the tube over the rim and actually sitting down in like the drop center, which is like the deepest valley of the wheel. So now we have that in there. I can find my valve stem, which is right here, and you can spin the whole mess around like this, tube and tire, until you get right to where your valve stem is. And once we have our valve stem right there, we can push the valve stem in, and I'm going to show you guys right here. I'll take you right off the tripod like we're live. So you can see I'm mounted up right there, and we can adjust this wheel. I'm just moving the tire, so we can spin it around and get it centered. So this is very important. If you don't want your valve stem at a funny angle, like you may have seen a car with a tubed tire at a car show, you need to rotate it and get it straight on. And then what we're going to do is take my little valve stem tool here, and we're going to thread this on right here to the valve stem, and we're going to pull that through, and this will keep it so that when we're airing things up and we're putting the tire on, the tube valve stem isn't going to pull back through the wheel. So that's a little trick that I like to do. So I need my other hand to do that, but I'm going to thread this on, get that set, and then we're ready to put our second bead on the rim. Alright, so now we're ready to actually mount our tire on the last section here. So what I like to do is, and a little tip for not wrecking your tube or your valve stem, is to turn your wheel so that you're not starting or ending right on your valve stem. So I'm going to get past the foot here, so we're just beyond that. And by the time we get to this at the very end, it'll actually just pop on, and we won't be prying right next to the valve stem. So we're going to push this down like this, get it against. I already have the knob adjusted over there so it matches a 16-inch wheel. And we're down and we're ready to go. So now what I can do is grab my bar here, and I'm going to put this down with the non-curved end like this. And we're going to push down, and we can make sure it's below the foot there, and we'll slowly start spinning this. And we're going to push down pretty hard. And now what we can do is move our bar back. So I'm pushing down pretty hard with our bar, making sure that our tube isn't pinched anywhere or has ridden up over the bead of the tire. That's one of the things you have to be careful of. And you can go back over here, keep the tire down, and keep spinning. So you'll see at the very end here, it'll pop on without any real force, like that. And we're just off of our valve stem, so that's why it's very important where you start the wheel and tire at, because it popped on, we didn't get anywhere with our bar where we're prying near that valve stem where we may cause a puncture or an issue with turning the wheel. So now you do have a little bit of room for movement on here. So again, you can center the valve stem with your tube, and we're ready to air it up and take it off the tire machine. So one thing that might be a little freaky when you're airing up a tubed wheel and tire is there's a lot of times, all times, there is air trapped in the tire and in between the tube and the tire. So as you start airing this up, you're actually going to hear air rushing out of the valve stem hole, because we have a tube and we have a tire and there's air in there and it's forcing it out as you add pressure to it. So don't be alarmed if you hear a bunch of air coming out of the tire. Then a lot of times it's just the air that's caught in there coming out. So we can just keep airing it up. And when we get to our desired pressure, we're good to go. So I'm going to keep airing this up, and we'll get this right to the pressure that I need, and then we'll be ready to move on to our next one. Alright, so you guys can see I really quickly got 2 of these wheels and tires all mounted up. Now I have some spares mounted up for one of my vehicles in case I ever get it flat. These wheels are basically identical to what I have on my coupe, and I can swap them on and off with no problems at all, and I can just keep them on the shelf for an emergency. Hopefully you guys found this helpful with mounting tires and wheels. The process is basically the same for a tubeless tire, but there's a couple tips and tricks in there that I've found over the years to help me get tires and tubes mounted up without having a pinch tube and a leak. Thank you guys for watching. If you want to learn more about the tire changer, you can click the link down below, or you can visit eastwood.com to get all the tools you need to do the job right. Thanks guys. Catch you later.